Hi Jodiann, and welcome back. It's great to have you here. We're going to be talking about a favourite subject of mine, one that I've written a few books about, and that's relationships. Now, I know you and I have had some long conversations about relationships. How are you?
I am wonderful, Jeff. Thank you so much. Yes, relationships and dating has been one of my favourite topics, and certainly hours and hours of discussion from you and myself. That I am very grateful for all of your advice that you've given me over the years, because through all of that, I've really been able to come to a better understanding about men and dating, and then it has helped me with my clients so much. And by combining your knowledge and what you've done, the intuition and the things that I do, I think that we've really come up with something very valuable for people that can cover so many areas from a guy's perspective and a girl's perspective. So I'm really glad that we're both here today, because you know, this is something that I think at the end of this, people are going to get both sides of ideas and come up with something that they can really use for dating. So I'm excited.
Yeah, well, you are the expert. I was going to say the master, but probably the mistress. You are the mistress of intuition, and of course, applying your intuition and my science research to dating. It's come up with some fairly useful information for people. So let's just get started. And I want to ask you a real simple question. Why do you think dating has become so complicated?
Look, I think life has become complicated. And I think that this is, if you watch mammals and you watch the way they meander through life, where you look at tribal traditions, a guy turns up and a girl turns up, and one's got wood and one's got a teepee if they were Indians. And they just go, you've got the teepee and I've got the wood, and I can hunt and you can prepare the food. And so they just look at it as a really simplistic way of adding value. Where nowadays people look at dating not as adding value, but adding complication. It's another thing they've got to think about. It's another thing that they've got to go and do. And it's another thing that's taking them out of their comfort zone, making them have to address issues. And there just isn't enough minutes in the day. And this is where people are getting really stuck, as the core problem with dating is that dating isn't dating anymore. It's not just looking for mutually things that could help and benefit each other and add value. People are instantly starting to look at the other person and go, where is this going to complicate my life more? And then, even in the 50s and the 60s, and probably towards the 70s, it probably started changing a little bit. But during the earlier times, you just looked for things about each other that was going to be compatible, whether the parents picked it or whether you picked it. And those things came together, and then you started working on a journey in a much simpler life, with a way of having to navigate through that in an easier way. There's just too many demands on people. The internet has changed everything and wrecked that, and we're really going to go through that today and talk about how to navigate through that. But for me, if you ask me, the core problem with relationships and dating right now is that people are looking at it in the wrong way, and they're looking at it as a complication instead of a benefit. And dating somebody is a benefit.
Yeah, I think as well that dating used to be, or is really, an exchange of goods. And I know it's not very romantic, and I've had big arguments with people before in the past with regard to that. But it's really, as you said, it is that exchange of goods, which was, you can provide fire and shelter, and I can provide warmth and children. And these are essentials. These were things that we needed to survive. Now that all of that's become automated, and we have fire, we have roofs, we have food. We don't need anyone to supply them for us, really. We can all do it ourselves. Then we start looking for a whole nother set of expectations from a person. Well, I don't need you for fire, so what do I need you for? And that's when we start looking into society to see, well, what is a partner supposed to be able to provide for me? What am I supposed to be able to get from them? And then I think a lot of people are out there trying to get these imaginary social expectations from their partners, rather than connecting with them on a real core level, like you were saying.
I agree absolutely. And it doesn't matter. I have people book in for all sorts of things. It's work, it's children challenges, it's lifestyle challenges. But I can guarantee you 99.9% of people, as they walk in that door, even though they're booked for something completely different, the first thing that is targeted is relationship or dating. And it is absolute confusion. And it doesn't matter whether they're in a relationship that's been there a long time, whether they're just dating. Every single client almost comes in confusion. The other thing that's happening that we need to address today as well is that there's a lot of swinging going on, and there's a lot of open relationships, and there's a lot of people cyber talking, and it's the trust in relationships is really something that has been damaged greatly, and we need to address that today and talk about being really open. To navigate through any relationship at the moment is going to require out of your comfort zone. It's going to require a lot of open discussion. And also, I think the biggest thing that I teach people when they come into me, when they're saying, should I leave the relationship or shouldn't I? One, I don't like giving anybody advice on that kind of level. It's up to them. But, what I say to them is that every single person has a life lesson. Every single person's going to have a problem that they are struggling with at some point in their relationship. So what you have to do is that you have to look at what that problem is, what your skill set is, and are you able to deal with that problem? Because that is the answer. Are people workable? Are they really able to do the work together? And if they're able to do the work together and they're both teachable and they both want to learn, then regardless of problems, they can work towards it. But if one is teachable and one isn't, and it's a problem that you have a lot of problems dealing with, then, these are some of the real problems. And I think having people identify what is a real problem, what is a little problem that can get worked on, and what is something that is just not able to be worked on, I think is really good information that we need to help people navigate through.
Yeah, and of course the big thing of these days is internet dating, and internet dating's made it so easy for anybody to basically cast aside their last partner because there's another 10,000 on the internet waiting for them to say hello to. What's your take on internet dating and how it's changed things?
Look, coming out of an 18-year marriage, and it was a marriage of a very deep friendship. So for me to go back into dating after meeting my husband through friends, which was, quite a normal, acceptable way of dating in those days, I actually went into the world of internet dating in completely the wrong way. The first guy that I spoke to, I thought, oh my God, he's the one that I'm going to end up with and all of this. And look, so I started talking to him. I think I was blocked by the end of the night because I just didn't get an understanding that not only is he talking to me in a very sweet way, he was also talking to probably 10 other people in exactly the same way. So my first probably 6 months on internet dating was a major shock and a major learning. And I had a lot of conversations with you at that time trying to decode men because men had changed. In that time between getting married and internet dating, the truth that was coming out of men, and probably women at the same time, the actual truth that was coming out, people didn't have the right pictures on the internet. Some of them were from 10 years ago. The girls were putting on pictures that were all done up that, didn't look like them. There's a lot of misconception with words, a lot of people jumping onto chats in sexual content really early, which I want to talk about in great length later because it's really important to understand that. So internet dating for me, I went on internet dating on and off for years until I had a bad experience, which I'll explain later as well. And this, for me, internet dating right at the beginning, Jeff, was probably one of the most difficult periods of my life associating in relationship. And that's why I spent so much time talking to you about it, because I really struggled with the idea that people were being so fake and that it was a world that you couldn't trust. And, in a large case of internet dating, that's true.
So what do you see particularly for both girls and boys? What are they doing wrong when it comes to internet dating? Are they going to find love, and what are they doing wrong? Let's talk about girls to start with.
Okay. I think always you can find love. I think, there's been many times I've met many people on internet dating that are still some of my dearest friends today. I have had some nice relationships from there. So, It's not a complete disaster, but there are some absolute rules that you need to apply if you're going to internet date. Number one, you have to clean up your own stuff first. You absolutely have to present yourself in a way that is congruent to you, that represents you properly. Use current photos and use things that are going to promote you as a person completely. Like on one of my sites that I had on, I talked about not that I was easygoing and not that I liked to party on the weekend and not that I liked to have barbecues. I talked about my life purpose. I talked about the things that inspired me and why having a friendship with me would be a good thing. So for me, after I got rid of all of the concepts I had, the misconceptions I had about dating on the internet, and actually just went out and said, I'm looking for a friend. And that's all I said was, I'm looking for a friend that adds value in my life and I add value to theirs. And I think for me, going into it that way and really listening to what you had told me about internet dating and about why the guys were saying what they were saying and why we were getting trapped. For a girl, it is difficult because genetically, I always say to girls, is that we're looking for the one. Okay, so we put a lot of emphasis into finding the person on our list, where genetically a guy is looking for a lot of places to put his seed. So for them, and that's not always the case, but that's a genetical default mode for guys, is that they've got, and we'll talk about this more, but they've got this genetic of, I've got to, put my seed in as many places, and the girl is looking for the best seed. So genetically we're different anyway. And applying that on internet dating gets really, really difficult because there are so many people. I've come across probably 30 or 40 profiles that I've complained about where they're not a person who was even real. One of them actually I talked to for 3 months and actually found out, and was talking to him as a friend. I'd never met him. He was in another country. And actually found out he was using David Gandy's profile pictures, which is was a model in England. And I spoke to him for 3 months. You're flooded with so much information on the internet while you're internet dating, and there's so much going on, it blocks off your intuition to make good decisions because you're just too concentrated on listening on something external, looking at what they've written, looking at their pictures, receiving text messages. It's all very fast, and it blocks out good intuition as to making a good decision.
All right, so you're saying that men want to speak to a lot of women because they want to spread their seed, and women want to speak to a lot of men because they are desperately looking for the one. Does that make internet dating thing potentially a good thing because each party can get what they want? Or, I mean, I know you've just said that it causes intuition problems, but is there a way of using it that doesn't cause intuition problems?
If everybody turned up with some level of honesty to begin with, and I'm not saying that everyone that turns up to internet dating don't turn up honest, because that's not true. As I said, I've met many people who I still care for to this day, but there are some sites that are better than other sites. There are some very quick hookup type sites where the girls are getting very confused because there's a lot of young girls out there and there's a lot of swinging couples. So there's a lot of girls getting swooped up into the swinging couples thing where the swinging couples aren't being upfront about what they want at the beginning, or the guys aren't being upfront about what they want at the beginning. So the young girls in particular are getting very, very sucked in by what they hear. And the guys are saying, many of them are saying exactly the same thing over and over again. And so the girls think this is the one, and the guys are, I know from experience with one relationship that I actually found internet information from them, and they were sending out between 10 and 15 poems a night, the exact same poem with a different girl's name on the same night, and they were very, very intimate poems. So I can imagine that the girl receiving that would feel like she found the man of her dreams, but that was going out to like 10 or 15 girls. So as far as the question on intuition goes, you have to slow it down. This is the whole thing. There is nothing wrong. I've heard from my intuition many times turn on a dating site over the years, and I'll go on for an hour, and then I'll disconnect it and I'll turn it off, and I'll meet somebody I'm meant to meet, and I'm using my intuition. And so sometimes I don't internet date so much now, but when I did, what I do is that I'll actually, I won't go on even to look at the site until I get a really clear message that I need to. And then I actually ask for another clear message of what I'm looking for, or who I'm looking for, or the type of person I'm looking for. And so I'll write in the message that I'm being given about that. So one relationship I was in for a couple of years, my intuition was telling me that they were in Sydney, what's the job they did. And so for me, when I got my intuition about that, I was on for only about 15 or 20 minutes. I found that person, I got off, and we chatted offline. That is an intuitive way of doing it. Spending 4 or 5 hours a night, which is what I was doing when I first broke up with my marriage, chatting to all these different guys all night is just a confusing pile of misinformation that does your head in and gets you nowhere. That is the mistake people are making, is that they're using up all of their energy they could be using for projects, make money, spend time with children. I mean, there were many nights when I could have been sitting with my daughter watching a movie, I was chatting online. I don't get that time back. That time's not going to come back to me. So there was a lot of time of this ridiculous miscommunication. My phone was so full of guys sending me their numbers in the early days when I didn't understand internet dating, and sending me, nude pictures and all of this kind of thing. That was a real shock to me, because it just wasn't something that I was used to. So there's a lot of problems with internet dating, and I think if we can break down what those problems are, how to avoid them, and how to stay congruent, I think that we can probably help people navigate through that better. So what are your ideas, Jeff?
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's a minefield, and it does draw you completely away from from hearing your intuition, from being congruent, because your brain is so full of base physical, emotional, sexual feelings when you're talking to these people, and it is 90% bullshit. Let's put it frankly. 90% of what people say online is either exaggeration or out and out lies. And of course, it doesn't mean that there isn't good people online. There's plenty of good people online, but they tend to exaggerate. And why? Because we all want to put our best foot forward, and we'd rather have someone seem attracted to us and message us and talk to us than be turned down flat and sitting there lonely at home. So people sort of make up these profiles, not because they're horrible people. I mean, I'm sure there are malicious reasons. Some of them do it, but I'd say 9/10 of the time they do it simply because they want to interact, and they want to have more interaction, and they want to have intimate interaction, but only in the moment. And that's one of the things I said to you in the early days, was you were getting concerned that these guys were telling you all of these romantic things. And you said, what does it mean? And I said, well, what does it mean when they let me down? How can they possibly have meant it? And the truth is that often, guys, we do mean it in the moment. We do mean it in that moment that we say it. We can get quite caught up in that moment, and we can get quite feelings of great romance or great passion towards somebody that we're talking to, but it doesn't necessarily last beyond that point. And of course, what to do about that and how to monitor whether it's going to last, that's what we're going to talk about later on today. But just tell me a little bit about the dangers that you experienced with internet dating, because you've had quite a bad experience, and it was simply because you didn't listen to your intuition. So it's another reason to really hone that skill.
Absolutely. I had probably because I was in relationships with people as well, but I had probably about a year of talking quite late into the evening. I'd work until maybe 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night, something like that, and then I would be talking to guys on the internet until about 2 in the morning, just for really entertainment at that point as well. And I was talking to one guy who I talked to for about 3 weeks, just as a friend, really, as I kept everybody as friends. But at that stage, I was talking to him as a friend. And he said to me, why don't you catch up with me and we'll just have a drink. And he was new to where I was living, and I said, sure, I'll just catch up for one drink. I am busy that day, but I'll catch up for a drink. So I went out in the afternoon. I went to go out in the afternoon, and normally my intuition is so strong. I hear it as clearly as I hear another human voice. It is that strong. I get guided every day. I know exactly what to do, where to go. And when I ask the question of myself, why don't I want to go on this date, normally my intuition would tell me, the guy's not okay, the situation's not right, you're tired, you need rest, you've got somebody else coming. I would know. I would absolutely know, and I would just text and say, look, I apologize, I can't make it. But all of that was removed from me, and I kept asking why, and all I heard was, you'll see. So I didn't want to put my makeup on. I kept going to pick up my phone to send him a message to say no. It was a very vague feeling. Now, some people hear their intuition with a concept or words. Some people see it with an image, like a warning image. And other people just have a sense. Well, on this day, when the intuition was pulled back to teach me a lesson, I just got a sense that I wasn't meant to do this. I even sat in the car and went, I don't want to turn the car on. When I turned up to meet him, he seemed fine. I really didn't want to be there, but he seemed fine. He bought me a drink. No, actually, I bought my first drink, and he bought his first drink, and that went through for about half an hour. And then I went to the bathroom, and he said, I want to buy you a drink. Normally, I would never let somebody buy me a drink, and I almost stopped and went no, and I didn't. When I came back from from going to the bathroom, and he wasn't there, our drinks were on somebody else's table that was empty, and my jacket was on another thing. And he had put them there so that, just in case it was obviously still bubbling or frothing, he had drugged me. He had drugged the drink. And I didn't want to drink the drink. And I remember just having a few sips of it, thinking, I don't want to drink this. He sculled his drink really fast, even though the first one he took slow. And he said, I'm freezing. Can we just go back to your work and have a pizza? And I've been speaking to him for weeks, and my intuition kind of went, no, but was really not listening. And by the time I got back to my place, my intuition, I just had to go to the bathroom, and the intuition kicked in. He had drugged me again in another drink, and this one, my foot hit and spilt across the whole ground. And at that point, he got very, very agitated. And I'm used to admit people in psychiatric departments and emergency wards, so I know exactly what somebody with a mental illness is going to do. And I came out of the bathroom, and I said to him, he started to undress. And there wasn't even, I must have had enough drug from the other place to realize that there was something going on. At that point, my intuition came very strong, and I heard, get him out now. And I literally had to psych patient him out. He went to the bathroom, and I rang my ex-husband and said, ring me now. And my dog ran across the upstairs place and started barking. And I said, my ex-husband's come home with an emergency with my daughter. I need you out of the house now, out of my office. It took probably about 15 minutes of getting this guy out of the place by actually really managing him as like a psych patient. He definitely had a schizophrenia illness. By the time I got upstairs, the drug had hit me, and I went to turn off the TV, and as I did, it said, SVU girl drugged on a date and killed. And it was the last, I remember locking the doors, and it was the last thing I had, and at 3 o'clock in the morning I woke up paralyzed and unable to basically get out of bed. But I fell onto the floor and rang 000 and crawled up and hit the door so that it could get in, and I had a heart attack. So he had actually given me an antipsychotic, which I'm allergic to, and had given me ketamine. And the two of them, it could have killed me. If I hadn't got to the door, it would have killed me. So my experience from that, and I'm grateful for my experience for that. I actually was in hospital. He had drugged 2 girls that night. He had actually left me and gone to somebody else. We were both in the same hospital with the same drug. And I actually didn't internet date for a very, very long time after that, until I put all that in my head and worked out, not only is this wrong, this is dangerous. This is really, really dangerous for girls in particular, to be hooking up with these guys and investing so much trust. because we're talking to them and we're divulging and we're getting into a deeper relationship like a pen pal, which doesn't happen when you meet somebody just in person like that, to that level. But when you're talking over days or weeks before you meet them, you are investing a lot of time, a lot of energy, and you think that you're getting to know them. And there's this fake level of trust, a very fake level of trust. So for me that night, not having my intuition and feeling what a normal person who hasn't trained in that feels, that is a very vague feeling to run by. That is a vague feeling. And if you're busy and caught up in the words that they're hearing, you are going to end up with some bad experiences, and you are in danger.
So what do you recommend for women and for men to be able to be more reliant on their intuition? What are they going to have to do to avoid these situations so they don't end up in uncomfortable places?
I think the most important thing is that, look, if you can trip somebody like me up with intuition and having that taken away, then it really, even for that moment, really identifies how much you need to be listening to that channel all of the time. So I suggest to people, come and do a course with me, come and learn how to hear your intuition better. Understand that your ego is going to be feeding you absolutely during this time. Your ego is like a saboteur in your brain that wants you to get tripped up and tripped up. Say it's a trust issue. The ego is like an inbuilt channel to make sure that you achieve a lesson. Okay, that's what it is. Even though it is negative, it actually, and sounds judgmental, it actually doesn't care. It just wants you to do it, to learn this lesson. So even though your ego state is something that you have to learn to ignore, it is also triggering life lessons for you. So when a girl goes on the internet and she goes, oh, he's cute, and he said hi, instantly the ego is going to go, he's into you. He's really into you. This is the one. This is the one. He's the one. Oh, look how sparkly he is. Gee, did you hear what he just said to you? Oh, my God, he's cute. He texted you this morning. Ooh, he likes you. So you're going to get this constant going over and over in your brain, which isn't true. So what you need to do is just learn what your ego sounds like for you. Get a clean notebook and pen and start writing down, when do I hear judgmental voice, negative voice, or a voice that seems to be giving me illusion. So, it might be going, oh, he's fantastic and he's the one. If you're listening to a lot of this rambling, your intuition doesn't talk like that. Your intuition talks in a very gentle, conceptual voice. So it's like an idea. It's like the smartest idea that you've heard. So, it might, like for me, when I was sitting down, I'd be writing something and then all of a sudden I'd hear, go on to this site for a minute. And I'd listen to that message once. It would be like an idea, it'd be a concept, and I'd go, there's a reason I need to. Like the other day, every now and then, I've only got one site that's available on my phone, but every now and then I'll get this message to go onto this site for just 5 minutes, and there'll be somebody I need to talk to. So only the other day, I did that exact thing. I was only on there for 5 minutes, met this person that I was meant to talk to, got offline, and actually we talked to each other on the phone straight away. And there is mutual things for us to do business-wise and friendship-wise. And so listening to your intuition in that way and utilizing to go on there to meet a friend or a person, but doing it not in in an idea that you're going to have an outcome like a relationship. It's just a moment to meet a person who might add value to your life is a better way to do it. But you've got to really make sure that you're listening to the messages within you. So the ego state repeats on a loop these messages that are distracting to you. They're very distracting, they're very forceful, and they're really trying to change your behavior and making you act in a way that causes you some grief or anxiety, or in a way that makes you not trust. Your intuition comes to you as a message that feels supported. It feels like the right thing to do. It gives you a sense of knowing, and you go, yeah, I need to do that. So it's going on, first of all, with the right intent, understanding that you have to listen to your intuition or you're going to end up talking to the wrong people. So have you got any more ideas about that too, Jeff, about your experience?
No, I think you've said it all. I think you were bringing up there one of the other issues, of course, which is expectations. People seem to have such huge expectations of what their partner should be, or who they should be, or how it should work out. And I think that's something we should sort of talk about as well, leading into that. Is how do people manage their expectations? Because you just said that you'll be happy to get online, meet someone in 5 minutes, and then realize that, well, that person is someone you should have a conversation with about business and perhaps friendship. You don't then project upon them, forever, happy ever after, 5 kids, a dog, a white picket fence, etc., etc. And I find an awful lot of people have taken their social expectations, what they've been brought up to believe, and they project these on the people they meet every day, which not just scares the people off quite often, but actually means that they probably miss out on some of the good things that they could be finding in these people. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. From everything that you taught me, Jeff, and I'm so grateful for the information that you gave me all those years ago, because walking out of my marriage and enjoying marriage, I really, really enjoy marriage, and I enjoy that partnership, that I walked into this with absolute expectations that the next person was going to be exactly the way my other marriage was at the beginning of my marriage. That was such a beautiful place to be. And so when someone said to me their wishes and their dreams, and the guys are really good at this, they talk a lot. There's a couple of different guys that you meet on the internet. One are very super clear at the beginning: I do not want a commitment, don't talk to me about it, I'm only here for fun, I've either got a partner or I just want to hookups. And they're very clear. Then there's this big catchment pool of a gray area where you're getting mixed messages, and then you're getting the guys that the girls are all avoiding, which are, I want to marry you, I want to control you. It's kind of the reverse. I want to marry you, I want to control you. And they really come on very strong, and the girls all run a mile because they're coming on too strong. So we have the girls too strong and the boys too strong, and then we've got this massive section in the middle where there's just absolute confusion and a lot of lies and a lot of misconceptions. And in that point, the girls are going in particular, and the boys, with very, very big expectations. The one thing I hear after the girls, one after the other, is, I didn't sleep with him on the first date, I slept with him on the second date, and he won't ring me back. Well, one of the things is, and this is something that I've learned from you and I've learned from experience, you might think that you get to know somebody really well over 3 or 4 weeks talking to them on the internet, but until you actually go and meet them in the flesh and you work out your chemicals together just by having a cup of tea, and whether the two of you are actually going to get on anyway, and whether what they were telling you is true. Intuition is a lot stronger when you're in person, because you can see a lot of what's happened to them, and their life is kind of written all over them and their mood. But the thing about expectations, and I'll go back to that point, is that when a girl hooks up with a guy, if she is looking for a husband and a partner, and that is her fairy tale, and this is really what she wants, and it's more the ladies that are going through the 40s or the late 30s and mid-30s and the 40s and the 50s who are in that kind of catchment zone of those kinds of ideas, their expectations is that they meet a guy online, they talk to him for a short period of time, they go and have a cuppa, they avoid having sex 1 or 2 times, and then bang, they're in a relationship. Well, it doesn't work like that, because he's probably had 5 or 6 dates over that last 2 or 3 weeks that he's talked to you, potentially. He is already having all kinds of challenges on the internet. The first night I was on the internet, I had 900 kisses. Now, I know the first night that my partner that I was with for a couple of years was on the internet, he had about 900 kisses too. That is a lot of confusion. That's a lot of people, that's a lot of emails. There's a lot of, if somebody writes you an email, there's a real expectation that you need to reply to that because it's polite. Well, if you get 300 or 400 emails, that's a lot of emails. You get this over-flooding of things that are going on the internet all the time with internet dating, and then you've got these expectations that it's going to go a certain way. Let me tell you, walk into this situation with zero expectations. And that is the only way you're going to navigate through this. You've got to go absolutely sorted with your own stuff sorted out, which we'll talk about. You've got to go completely congruent with who you are. And you've got to go with zero expectations because, number one, you don't know this person. Number two, it takes a while for your intuition, for you to relax and for you to be able to get a better handle on what's happening. And number three, which we need to talk about in great detail, is this intimacy thing, about people getting intimate too quick, and it brings in the genetic predisposition of being a mammal and the girl wanting to cling and the male wanting to move on and find a new place to put his seed. So the girl thinks she's found the right one, and the guy's thinking he needs to go and explore his options. And if you get into intimacy early in the relationship, it's not giving you enough time to override these basic predispositions. Have you got more to say about that, Jeff? This is something you taught me at the beginning.
No, I like you to continue with what you were saying there, because you're absolutely spot on. That the intimacy problem is probably causing more problems than anything. And of course, we all want to be modern, and we all want to have fun, and we all want to enjoy ourselves and not be stuck in the muds and fuddy-duddies. But at the end of the day, what's happening is a lot of women, particularly, are putting their hopes into these guys that there is no hopes in, and they've butted them up on the internet because it's fun to do, and it's like a big theatre which we get to interact in, and we get to be whoever we want to be on the other side of the screen. And whilst who we're being is probably a part of who we are, it's only a small fraction. And as you were saying, when you meet in the flesh, there's this whole other thing that goes on where you pick up signals you never realized about. And we were built to be able to pick up genetic codes through smell. Now, here's something that most people don't realize is that studies have been done where women have been able to literally pick a genetically matching partner, in other words, a person who they are most predisposed to have babies with, simply by sniffing the underarm odor. Now, you don't get any of this online. Now, I know we don't go around sniffing each other's underarm odor, but at the same time, we do pick up many of these cues when we meet people one-on-one, and that's all missing from the internet dating stuff. Now, just on what we were talking about here, young women with older guys and older women with younger guys. That's another big switch around, isn't it? Do you want to go into some of that?
It is. What's happening is that, and I had a long chat to a group of young girls the other day, because I get presented with a lot of 15, 16-year-old girls, and their mums bring them because they're worried that they're going to lose their virginity and they're getting way too close to boys. Mom, they missed that boat a long time ago. Just let me tell you that the 15 and 16-year-old girls, many of them have been having sex for several years that you are completely unaware of. And what's happening is that the young girls are thinking that they're actually giving oral sex to boys a lot. And they think that by giving oral sex to boys, and a lot of boys, the boys are all sending nudes. I know even from my young daughter, there's nude photos coming in from boys all day. And the boys are after one thing. The young boys are after the girls to go and give them, oral sex. And the girls think because it's not intercourse in their eyes that they're not doing anything wrong. So they're developing this consciousness that in order to keep the boys, I have to give them oral sex. And the young boys are going, you're worth nothing because you're giving me oral sex. So the young girls have got zero value, and the older girls are going, you want to have those kind of intimate relations with me, you're going to have to work a lot harder. And what happens is that the guys then get a quest. They've got to earn the older girls' admiration. It goes back to the predisposition of their genetics, where they have to fight for the girl to get her. So it's this massive quest for boys to go and get a mature lady, because it means that he's actually beat the pack, won the herd, done what he was meant to do in his co-creation, and nailed the hot chick. They all call them the MILF, and they've nailed the MILF. And the young girls are such easy lays that the older guys are in relationships, they're looking for easy lays, so they're just targeting these young girls who have fallen into such bad behavior with the boys at school, because the boys at school are saying, you want to date me, dear? Get down and get on this job, because if you don't do that, I am not interested in you. So I've had that many girls turn up to me in tears saying, what do I do now? And the message I gave my daughter, and the message I give all these girls, is that you have to make a decision about your body. Now this, I'm talking from a girl's perspective right now. You have to make a young decision about your body. What are you prepared to give away? What are you prepared to be known as? Boys do not like bringing girls home to meet their mothers for happy ever after that have been going around and giving oral sex to a whole pile of boys, because that isn't the sort of person they want to raise their children with. So you've got to make a really early decision. It's not about losing your virginity. It's not about your first time of having oral sex. It's what are you going to do the next time? What are you going to do the time after that? And how are you going to set up your whole sexual expression until you're married, in your married relationship? It's a much bigger question. So for my daughter, this is what I've said to her, is that I've explained to her that girls are like a box of chocolates to boys. And they go, ooh, I've had the one with the red wrapper, I'm going to go for the one with the green wrapper, and I've had this and I've had this. And if girls realize that when they present to young boys, they're a box of chocolates, and that there's another chocolate sitting next to them, why would you want to go around giving oral sex to a guy that's going to be one moment when he's going to turn, when it's such an intimate thing, that he's going to turn around, one, he's going to tell everybody, two, he's going to tell everybody a whole bunch of other stuff, three, your name's going to be very bad. And then where is the loving long-term relationship going to come for you when you've got such a reputation? Other than that, you can get a disease. You can end up with a whole pile of problems. Young boys are not very good at, keeping condoms in a good condition. So there's a whole pile of problems with what is set up very, very early in relationships. And the reason they're swapping is because the swap is the absolute predisposition. So the young girl is looking at the older man going, he's got money, he's got a business, he's set up, he's got a car, he can pay for my dinner. And so she's going, he's got the seed I need for my baby because he's got the goods. And the young boys are going, I can fight for the old woman, get her, she's hot, these young girls are stupid. And it's just changing everything. So that's why the dating is, I've had many, many, many requests of a full-time relationship, not just a date, but I've had many requests from young boys for a permanent full-time relationship with me, with marriage and all kinds of things. And the reason that that's happened is because they see me as something that they wanted to fight for. Where with me they would have to fight for me, but for a young girl, there's no fight. The young girl just goes, I'm going to keep you, this is what I'm going to do. Take your clothes off.
Yeah, and I think at the same time, I think if you go back again into prehistory, and we have to look at all of our drives, we kid ourselves that we're civilized. It's a joke. We've been civilized for 5 minutes in the scheme of things, and barely so, if you ask me. So just because we drive around in a nice car and can fly in an aeroplane and wear fancy clothes doesn't mean that the person wearing the fancy clothes isn't far more closely related to the people living in caves and bopping each other on the head and eating, I was going to say dinosaur meat, but there were no dinosaurs then, were there? But you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
And we forget that, men want someone strong. Okay, the whole concept of the itsy-bitsy, airy-fairy girlfriend is all well and good in this society, but really when a guy marries, he marries someone who he believes can be, as in the biblical term, if you want, a helpmeet. Someone who can help them, someone who can be there for them. So I think guys are finding themselves, we've been through the ditzy blondes phase. We've been through the long blonde hair, big tits. We like to look at that and we like to play around with that. But when it comes to a relationship, we want someone who has a strength about them, who has character about them, who can who can guide a family, who can be strong enough, when I'm not there, when I'm out hunting, can be strong enough to look after my bambinos. And I think that the young guys don't see that strength in the women so much these days, in the young girls these days, because they're off still thinking that the boys want the big tits and all of the other things. So they see it as well in the older woman. They see that strength of character, someone wise, someone who's been around the block. And conversely, the young women see that strength in the men, because women want to see that in their men too. And the young boys are fickle, and they tend to be less resourceful. So the young women want to team up with the guys who they feel can provide better resources. So it's funny, we both want what we used to want thousands and thousands of years ago, but we've changed ourselves to be other than that. And that's, I think, where the problem comes.
And I think at the moment, people are starting to tune into their intuition. People are starting to take those moments and breathe. There's enough information out there about people trying to find their spiritual path. Up until probably even the last, there's been some pretty major events in the world, like Japanese tsunamis and, ones that have, some major wars and events. And people are starting to question, what do I want? What is life really about? And their intuition, because we're going through a new phase of society, people are starting to come off the internet, and people are starting to go, there has to be a better way. And there's simplicity is the word that is being, their intuition is feeding them. I really want to just go for a walk in the park with my kids tonight. I don't need to go to the gym and leave them in daycare another hour. Let's go pick them up early, and let's go have a barbecue at the beach, and let's go watch that sunset, and let's go stand in the sand, and let's play. And people are starting to lighten up, and people are going, no, maybe we can have slightly less of a house, and maybe we can get you out of work, and we'll just work you part-time so you can spend more time with the kids. There's so many social problems coming into society right now. There's so much stress, there's so much suicide and depression and health disorders, and there's so many things that are pulling people up. Cancer. We're getting to the end of the line of our body's ability to cope with and minds with the stress that we're placing on each other. So people are going, I don't want a relationship. I don't want to do all these things. I just want simplicity first. So this is great. So we need to go to simplicity. And simplicity means drop all the baggage. Drop the stuff from the past. And we'll go into how to do that. But the simpler you can make yourself to being a happy, innocent child, enjoying your senses, powering up like we've talked about before, and we can talk about that again, about powering up relationships and dating. But the simpler that we can get ourselves to where we need to be right now, personally, then we can start attracting the right person. But we have to really, before we go into dating, we need to get all our boxes ticked. Are we ultimately happy? Are we ultimately peaceful? Are we working towards our life purpose? Do we even know what that is? Are we having a congruent day? Are we enjoying our life? What have we got that we could give somebody else and support them? The amount of people that write lists about what they want in a guy or a girl, yes, I get a basic understanding of that, but what have you got to give? That's really, you want to come down to, if you want to attract somebody, well, then you want to know what you've got on the table to provide to them. So for me, I'm a good communicator. I'm really affectionate, compromising. I'm not judgmental, and I love working with problems within a relationship when somebody is teachable and workable. So for me, I'm happy and I'm giggly and I have a lot of those things and I like having fun. There are some other areas in my life that, of course, I'm still working on, but when I bring those things to the table, I bring a real even plate for you to work out some of your stuff, where I'll support you and give you, what you need and try and understand what it is that you need help with. And then go to you for some of the stuff that I might need help with so we can work things out. So when I'm looking at somebody, they're the things that I'm checking all that about me. Where am I happy in my life? Where am I not? Why turn up for a relationship if I had low self-esteem right now, or if I didn't love myself, or what is the point of turning up for something if I have every box crossed off on my list and I'm not ready? So ultimately, are you ready? Have you really looked at yourself, or are you still carrying baggage from the past? Have you done a bit of an overhaul on yourself? I think it's really important. What do you think about that, Jeff?
Yeah, the concept of writing a list, I just wrote an article on it this morning, in fact, and I was saying that it's a bit of a joke. We write these long lists of what we want without a thought as to what we have to offer. And if we spend more time writing down exactly what you said, what we have to offer, and working on what we feel we could add, or what we could improve, what we could grow, how we could grow, then we tend to attract those people towards us who we'll be able to add value to, as opposed to the whole thing becoming, I want this, you didn't provide it, therefore I don't love you anymore, which of course is how most people are having relationships these days. So look, going back to something you said, how do you clear your past so you can move through into a new relationship, a new way of having relationships?
There's several ways. I think number one, you've got to have some quiet, honest time with yourself and look at what happened in relationships and what is the pattern of behavior. So in my early days, I had trust issues when I was really young. I had trust issues, and then I went and worked out all my trust issues, and then ended up with an experience where I actually was in a trusting relationship for a long time, and there were things going on, and I wasn't even aware of them because I had got so trusting. So after that experience and being woken up about that, I went through another period of not being trusting again. So for me, the first thing I had to do, and this is we're talking, 7 or 8 years ago now, but I had to really look at, okay, what issues do I have? What am I trusting? What am I not trusting? What is pressing these buttons for me? And when I was really young, it was abandonment stuff. So for me, it was changing countries, being put into a convent, parents trying to sort themselves out in a new country. A lot of people that travel from different countries and get put in different situations, leaving friends and family, have abandonment issues. So for me, it was looking at, okay, let's do some work around that. So what I suggest is that there's a couple of things. One, you can book in with a session with me, and in a downloading session, or yourself, Jeff, they can book in with either of us. There's identifiable things in their life lessons that they have that will be repeating on patterns that intuitively I can download to them. I also have guided journeys. Now, I do a lot of intuitive journeys. Now, the intuitive journeys that I do I take them from the present moment and the past so that we can not go into a memory that they've tried to sort themselves 100 times and keep missing. So we go back to the moments where the real problem happened. So abandonment for me, somebody might have thought it was my first relationship trial at 16 that broke up, and they might have pinned it on that if you were a normal psychotherapist. But for me, I get taken back when I take the person on the journey to an intuitive moment that happened at 2 or 3 when a dad went overseas and left them. And so it's finding out the real moment of their abandonment. So I've got guided journeys that they can buy online. They can book into a session for a guided journey. They can book in with you. They can have an intuitive download session. Whatever it is that they need at the time will happen exactly as they need. So I'm also doing these transformational workshops at the moment. They can book into those. And there will also be some transformational stuff available online. Yep.
Okay, so it's not something that they can do for them. Is there any steps they can take in the meantime to be able to just put some of the baggage behind them? So let's say that they're in the process of dating at the moment, which I'm assuming if they're listening to this, they probably are. Well, what can they do in the next 24 hours to start moving forward and improving the quality of people that they're communicating with, or the quality of relationship they're having? Okay,
number one, no expectation. That has to be absolutely number one. They can't have any expectation at all when they go out that the person that they're going to meet is long-term. Okay? It's a moment. So that's number one. So if they drop that, it starts to instantly drop the stress that's around them. Because as soon as you have an expectation, you start going into flight and fight response about having to get that expectation. So that's number one. Number two, you need to do a thing that I call powering up, which when somebody walks towards you, there's a whole pile of pop-ups. And the pop-ups are their wishes, their dreams, whether they're needy, whether they fought with their last boyfriend, whether they're desperate, whether they're going to be cheaters, whether they're sad from a child, whether they've got no life purpose, whether they're boring, whether they don't like sex. Everything is written on you. And that's why when you first walk up to somebody, you're already downloading whether you like them or not. And this is something that just happens, as you say, you're smelling chemicals, you're looking at things, and there's this incredible thing that our mind is doing, going crazy, working out, is this person the right person? So you've got to override a whole pile of these messages. So number one, you've got to get yourself in check. So there's a battery inside of us I call the power-up battery. And in order to get that full, when it's full and you're beaming, whether you're the right person for that person or not, they're going to enjoy your company if your battery is full. So whether you go out and you have a lovely date and a lovely moment and it goes nowhere, but you still had a lovely time, isn't that a lovely moment? So how to get that battery full? Take some time. Focus less on your makeup or your clothes and go and get outside and do something in nature. Go for a swim, go for a walk, go, enjoy the environment, an animal, go and do something with some friends. Be light. If you want to have a good date, you've got to lighten yourself up. So using your senses, listening to your intuition, have something nourishing to eat. Be appreciative. Stop for a moment and think of the appreciative things. Think about if you have a drink and somebody's put all that together for you and someone grew beautiful fruit and the rain and the sun. Be grateful for things and be very positive, and have no judgment. Don't stand in the mirror putting on your makeup if you're a girl or a guy putting on a shirt and going, oh God, is this the best I'm going to do? Because what you're going to end up doing is putting out this lack of self-love and this lack of appreciation of yourself. Appreciate yourself. Look at the things about you that are beautiful and endorse and appreciate them and know that you're turning up to the table with this person with so many beautiful things about you. So take a moment and think about those. I tell people to send themselves beautiful light. So see themselves standing in a rainforest and see the sun shining on them or see light going to themselves. Whatever it is, just get that battery inside of you full. And then when you're looking at that battery, you can look at your body really quickly once you're all shiny and just go, where do I see a dark dot on me? And so if I see a dark dot on me, I'll just acknowledge it and I'll put my hand on it and then I'll look at what that emotion is and instantly it'll give me an emotion. So it might be sad or it might be fear or, it might be pain, whatever it is. And then you can do a couple of things. If you're good at doing kind of guided journeys yourself, you can just put your hand on it and just see a moment in your life that had that pain in it and send it love. See some kind of resolution, see white light come to it, see that black dot dissolve. Whatever it is that you want to do, you can see a balloon, you can see it taken away, put the energy in it, you can do whatever you want. But if you just go through your body quickly and look for any of those dots, because it is those dots that the people are going to see. I see them straight away as you walk up to me. The second you walk up to me, I can see every pain you've ever had, how it happened. And do I choose to look at it 90% of the time? No. If you came to me for a session, I do. But I know from every experience that I've had from working with people dating and my own experience of dating is that if you don't clear this slate, then you will be judged. It's just the way it is because people aren't listening to their intuition, they're listening to their ego, and the ego is full of judgment.
Okay, and if someone is bringing in the same kind of person time and time again, repeating the same sort of mistake, is this really just something that they can change by doing what you've said, or is there something else they need to be looking at?
if somebody is attracting the same person over and over and over again, there is something very deep that they're not looking at. And the question is, how many times do you want to bang your head against a wall until it hurts enough to stop? Now, I had quite a time of rescuing men. So just because of my nature, I kept attracting people that I had to rescue. And even though over the years I did it in a different way, I learned and I learned and I learned. It's only really been a more recent thing that I've pulled in more than that when I actually physically got injured. And I carried somebody, I was court ordered too, so I had to carry them through a court case. And I ended up with a fractured back. So in that time, I was aware of my decisions, but because I was court ordered to be in this court case, I couldn't really walk out of this one. The damage was already done. But the damage had happened probably a year before when I was carrying them, and then I got to a point and I stopped carrying them, but I was still court ordered to be on a plane every other, few days to get down to be in court. So for me, that repeated lesson is giving me a journey of, you can't do that. You just, even on that level, you still, even though I have gone from completely rescuing people to offering assistance, you have to be the priority. You still have to be the priority. The problem with people is they give all of their power away. And when you give your power away to somebody else and let them make the decisions for you, put in too much energy and you're not getting anything back, there needs to be a level that you go, what am I getting and what am I receiving, and is there a balance here? Or am I just giving everything away and getting nothing in return, and then my life is not working? You have to turn up equal. You have to have a clear slate and you have to turn up equal. If you're not turning up equal and you're giving too much away, there will be a payout at some point, whether it's physical or emotional.
So you're talking here probably about a form of self-love, is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Now, it seems to me a lot of people talk about this concept of self-love, but it doesn't always resonate with a lot of people. And the reason I say that is because I know that a lot of people will be there saying, I've seen it happen, especially self-help people who've had some instruction in self-help, and they know they're supposed to love themselves, and on the outside they can put on this great show for themselves as much as anybody else, where they say, I love myself, and they have affirmations written on their mirrors, and they say affirmations in the car, and they listen to happy music, and they tell everyone how happy they are with the size of their thighs or their smile or whatever. But in the dead of night, lying in their bed, they cry themselves to sleep. And I know this because I've worked with enough women to know it's the case. What do you say about self-love that is different from the other self-help, let me just say charade that a lot of people put on?
I think self-love has to go to a level that is a lot deeper than words. And this, in all of the education that I give about self-love, I don't take you back to a 15-year-old who's working about whether they have a thigh gap. I take you right back to the beginning of when you're in the womb and get people to go and have an appreciation for their cells that made them, for the mother that ate the right food, for the father who stayed around and put his hand on their belly, for the nurturing that they got. I take people right back to the beginning stages of where self-love actually began at a cellular level and get them to start appreciating what it is about them. It goes back to everybody has gifts to give somebody. It's just finding out what your gifts are. So self-love isn't a thigh gap. That my daughter is going through this at the moment, and there's a website dedicated to thigh and box gaps, and if you don't have both, God help you. But it's, that kind of targeting physical self-love is going to get you nowhere, and it certainly isn't going to get you a loving relationship. And so when I do self-love, I go right back to right at the beginning where, I do visual journeys with people back into their uterus and watching their cells grow and watching the light and being mesmerized by what they hear in their mom's voice the first time, and watching them when they're, getting them to go back on journeys and watching them when they're 2. And watching the beetles and trying not to pull them apart, but watching all the butterflies and the world of wonder and magic. And then we start going to look at the places where that went belly up, where they went into school and they started getting judged, or the teacher was having a bad day and they took on all the experiences of the parents' anger and their problems, and they got disempowered. So when I go on the self-love journey, I go back to the moment that they actually got disconnected and disempowered. I personally believe, and I want to have a big chat about this on another level about children and raising children, I believe that self-love and disempowerment are the same thing. And I believe that they happen at a very early age, depending on your first no's and how they're responded to. Because it causes this disempowerment. Now, if you are empowered, empowerment means that you're connected to yourself, that your cells and your body and your mind and your heart are all in tune to your soul, that you're powered up so that have got lots of good magnet things coming to you, that you're being congruent, that you're not being judgmental. So self-love is a much bigger picture than a physiological thing that everybody is really hyped up about. Go and look in the mirror and say 10 affirmations. Well, I can tell you that you can say 10 affirmations that you've got a box gap and a thigh gap, but if you don't have one because you're a big hip girl, no 10 affirmations is going to change the fact that you cannot get a box gap or a thigh gap. So your self-esteem is always going to be low because it's not possible for your genetic predisposition to do that. So you've got to pick the areas in your life that you're proud of, that you're working towards. You've got to, if you want to be self-loving, then you've got to look at a way that you're loving other people. It's an expression of yourself. So you've got to look at how you are putting out your expression of who you are. Are you being congruent? Are there beautiful things about you that you're working on? Are you allowing people to see them? Are you being transparent? Are you clearing your own blocks? All of these things, self-love needs to be, and that's why I work on programs with children, is that if we can keep them from shutting down between 6 and about 12 and keep their self-love open, then self-love will be a completely different concept as we move into the future for people.
Yeah, so it's not self-love, it's cell-love, C-E-L-L, which I think is really interesting,
Yes.
the way you put that. It's taking it beyond whatever society says. The reason we don't have self-love is 9/10 of the time because of what we've been taught either through our social lessons, the magazines, the websites, etc., or our peers or our parents. But it isn't anything to do with who we are on a cellular level. That's probably the most superficial level of all. So that's a really clever way, is to actually take people back to appreciation of the individual cells and their formations and their role in our lives. I often work with people where I'll just say to them, "Hey, how is your digestion? Did your food manage to get digested all by itself?" Yes. Well, how's your white blood cells? Did they manage to prevent the infections over the last week or so? Yes. Right. So can you not see and appreciate the amazingness of your body and who you already are? And then, of course, the other thing is to remember that you don't have to love something in the sense that you're jumping up and down out of your skin, screaming and hollering and saying how amazingly beautiful it is. You can just be great with it. You can be fine with things. And, if you look at your body now, as you get a little bit older, you start to go, well, I'm never going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger anymore, and I've got to be all right with that. So it's not about having a body that you are raving about, or about having a body part that you think matches up with Kim Kardashian's. It's about it's all good with what I've got. It might not be the best in the world, but it is what it is. It gets me from A to B. It does what it's supposed to do, and I'm happy with that. And I think that's the difference with the self-love, that people go out there and try and impress other people with how much they love themselves, which isn't necessarily what they're talking about.
And I think it's so true, living in the present moment. If you can live in the present moment and you can be powered up, you become a magnet for what you need. Now, recently, when I went, just only in the last few days, I actually set out to whatever you believe guides you, even your mind. As soon as you ask your mind a question, it starts formulating how to help. Okay, the mind is a very incredible thing. So even if you're not a spiritual person and you're very much either, an atheist or into science in some way, the mind instantly starts giving you answers and heading you in the right direction of the things that you need. So I am setting up a foundation for children at the moment, and at the moment I've been in a lot of pain because I've had a nerve that's blocked, and I just needed to find somebody beautiful to do some filming with me. Well, when I went online, the person that I met was a film person. So and he was having a moment that he needed some help with. So this is the way this works, is that if you stay very powered up, if you stay very congruent, you go and live in the present moment, you become a magnet for the things that you need. And if you go and you start enjoying your day, somebody's going to come and join you. If you go in and find out what your life purpose is, I'd say 80% of the people who come to see me have no idea what they're meant to be doing. That is probably next to dating is the biggest question. What is my life purpose? Well, the reason they don't know their life purpose is because they weren't listening in the first place. If you look at the play of children, if they think about the play of what they did they have armed soldiers? Did they create things? Did they build things? Did they nurse everything? Did they do tea parties? Did they decorate? Were they very empathetic? How did they hear their intuition? Was it from fear of words, scary pictures, gut feelings? If you can work out what it is that the child was doing when they were young, it gives you the idea of what you're meant to be doing when you're older. So if you're saying to mom every day, take me to SeaWorld, I want to see the dolphins. Well, there is probably something that you're meant to help somewhere along the line with some kind of sea creatures if you constantly want to put your hands in water and play with starfish and dolphins and things like that. If you are constantly asking to go to museums and study ancient history, which my daughter actually did, she always wanted to go and study ancient Egypt, there's something there for her. So self-love is about really it's about taking the time. Now, you just heard me say yes then. That yes then was my intuition as a voice saying this is really, really important. The major problem with dating right now is people are not taking the time to set themselves up to date. Because you have to be ready and available and present to do that successfully. So if you go from one relationship to another, or you haven't fixed the last one that broke down, and you head into another relationship, you will hit replay if you do not get yourself. You need to take the time. You must take the time. Do a journey. Give yourself 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. Give yourself some time to regroup and find out, what do I really want? Where do I want to be? And where do I want to meet this person? Do I want to meet them at a charity function? Do I want to meet them on the internet? What can I do and what place can I put myself in order to have a better dating experience from the beginning?
So on that topic, is it possible to manifest someone into your life? Is that what you're suggesting, that is possible if we get ourselves congruent and in line?
I always believe in manifestation as long as you are manifesting in the right way. So if you manifest and you just say 3 times a day, I now have this wonderful person in my life, but you use zero happiness, zero vision, zero feeling about it, then you're probably going to have a zero response. It's like people say to me, I asked for $1 million, I didn't get it, but I said I had a bad experience at work and I got that. Well, the bad experience at work was weighted on a whole pile of emotion, and I'm going to win lotto tonight was weighted on nothing. So if you want to manifest something, absolutely. If you become a magnet, you power yourself up, and you do some training in that, and you learn how to do that, absolutely. On average, it's taken me, when I've put my manifestation power into it and let it go. Remember, what you have to do with manifestation is that you've got to ask for what you want, be very clear, but then go and spend the time powering up, not fretting over whether it's going to happen or not. because you lose your power when you fret, flight and fight idea when you worry. All of that decreases your power, and then you're not a magnet. On average, on relationships, if I was really, really wanting a relationship and I was ready, I could manifest one in about 3 weeks. I personally believe that even though you can manifest things really quickly, there is a process of manifesting that takes often several weeks, where you have to lay down a foundation, keep congruent, keep powered up, and then those events click in, and it gives whatever you believe is guiding you the time to manifest those situations for you. You also have to start becoming opportunistic, in that if a friend invites you out and you feel the urge to go, but at the last minute just go, no, I don't really want to go, you really need to assess why you're not going. Is it fear? Is it because you're tired? Is it because you can't be bothered? Is that the way you're going to turn up to your relationship? Tired, can't be bothered, fearful? So there's some really good questions. If you've got an opportunity and all of a sudden you're really pumped and you really want to go, and at the last minute you just go, no, I don't want to go, you really need to ask yourself, why don't you want to go? Is this because you're not ready to date? Is this because something went wrong with the opportunity? You need to get very clear with your intuition to know why, and clear with yourself to know why you were missing that opportunity. Happened to me many, many times, years and years ago, where there would be a perfect opportunity for me to meet people, and at the last minute I just go, no. And was that because I wasn't ready, or was it because I was still working on myself? Who knows? But it has now led me on this self-discovery where I know all the time what I am doing, and what I want and what I don't want, and what I'll accept and what I don't. You have to be very clear what you're going to accept. If some guy gives me a hard time about anything at all, right now in my current state, they're not adding value. I don't want to talk to them. I don't want to listen. If somebody has great judgment on me, I don't want to listen, because I'm working on keeping my own energy. Now, this is something we really need to talk about, is that you exchange energy. The one thing the science agrees on, energy is never lost, it's transferred. So if you go on a date with a guy who's completely miserable, his energy is terrible, he's judgmental, you're going to go home with some of that. And you're going to have to do some clearing of it. So everybody needs to be very, very respectful of their own energy. So when they turn up, they don't go exchanging negative energy with each other, that they try to add value and be positive. The other thing is that if you're going to have sex with somebody who's got negative energy, I can tell you right now, you're going to be going home feeling pretty bad. You don't want to be intimate and swap intimacy on such a level with somebody who's a very negative person or there for the wrong reason. So is a one-night stand good for you? No, it is not good for you. Is it adding value to you? No. Is it... Now, you might want to go out and have a self-exploration for a few months. That's fine, but you're going to have to do that with a completely different expectation and a complete understanding that you're going to be picking up energy of some pretty negative people, because it's not a very positive way to live. Constantly having sex with different people all the time and picking up on their fears and negativities and all that stuff, that's not what making love was meant to be about for us. And if you want to go into that arena, that's fine, go try it on, but try it on in the arena that's what you're doing. You're not trying to form relationships, you're trying to experience a sexual moment. And it's really important to clarify that, because so many people out there are looking for so many different things. We need to sort out what do we want.
So how long do you think people should wait to be intimate, and why?
It is a really excellent question, and in all the years that I've been counseling people about this, I talk of a minimum of 4 weeks and probably closer to 2 months. And the reason that I go on this is that you've got to override the predisposition of genetics. So the girls have got to calm down, they've got to start having a bit of trust, and the guy's got to start having intimate feelings for you. He's got to override the fact that if he deposits, his seed, that he then has to go and deposit it somewhere else. Where if he holds off from that, he hasn't done his job of depositing that seed, and then he is waiting he's building a relationship with you. And so if he actually gets feelings for you, then he is way more likely to stay around once he's deposited his seed. So I say get to know them and just back that off. But it means that you have to back off the sex pictures, the sex chats, the cutesy stuff, and keep it really. When I was dating, I would turn up and I would explain absolutely on the first date, I'm here for friendship. I'm here for friendship. I'm not in for an intimate relationship. I'm not here for a one-night stand. This is how I turn up to the table. I want to get to know you as a person. And I'm very clear, very, very clear, right at the beginning. And I explain to people, I don't do intimacy for at least, a couple of months or whatever it is. I just don't do that. You need to get to know me first. Because what I believe is that I believe that a woman's temple is her heart and, her private girl parts are a temple together, where a guy's temple is just his heart. A guy can have sex and it doesn't mean the same thing that a girl does when she has sex. When a girl allows somebody into her temple, it has a whole bunch of other stuff going on for her. And I believe that, for them, there is a real soul connection of a woman that expresses herself through her sexuality in a different way to a man. So can you explain how a man expresses himself? Because I can only explain it as a woman. What do you think?
Well, I think you're right. There is a problem, however. I absolutely agree that if you want a relationship with someone, you have to have fired up the oxytocin. And the oxytocin is what they call the cuddle chemical. Without that, you really have nothing. You have estrogen and you have testosterone and all of the mating chemicals. But if you can bond with somebody, oxytocin kicks in and it makes you closer and it makes you want to be with them and it makes you want to build more of a life with them. However, here's the problem. When you have a guy who hasn't been getting any, for want of a better word, he's still often acting in the fight or flight mechanism. In other words, the thrill of the chase. As long as you're holding out, he is still hunting you. It's almost like the ultimate game. Now, at this point in time, when you've got to distinguish whether this guy is just playing one massive great deer hunt or whether he's actually bonding with you, I think that's probably the time you really want to address your intuition. What would you say about that, Jodiann, for people who want to distinguish the difference?
I think that it's knowing yourself, again, staying powered up so that you hear your intuition, that you don't listen to your ego, because your ego is going to be telling you he's into you, he wants to marry you. It's also at the same time going to say he's cheating on you, he's looking at other girls. It's going to, in those times that you're building that foundation of a friendship, your ego is going to be driving you crazy. And I think that you have to really start listening. I mean, even for me, who's got very good intuition, at times in the early, 7 or 8 years ago in relationships, was making, that's why I came to you, Jeff, was making some fairly, silly decisions and not really understanding it because I was new back into internet dating. And I really had to work out a way of listening to this ego state going, you're giving me bum messages about this. You're giving me the wrong messages. I really need to listen to my intuition. So I had to start learning how to communicate more effectively. If a guy was giving me a message, I would actually pull him up on it. And I would say to him, hey, look, let's discuss this because I'm getting mixed messages here. I just want to be really clear with you. So I think learning to ask really good questions, learning to be really clear, I think qualifying where the person's at, what they want, how it's going. I think that you have to be really open and honest and communicative and not become withdrawn and listen to your ego, not listen to your intuition, and then make judgments. I think that the problem people make is that they continually are judging themselves, whether whether the guy likes them enough based on how they look or how they're acting, and then if the guy gives them a message that they don't. Yes, see, I'm getting a very important message here is we need to speak about SMSing too, because the SMSing is what is really causing a lot of problems in relationships. Because the message that I'm getting here is that girls receive a text message and they judge it. Now, if you don't ask a guy a question, number one, he's likely not to return that for some time till the end of the day. And number two, he may not even reply because you didn't ask him a message. You just said something. Well, guys are particularly bad at sending back an SMS sometimes if they weren't asked to do a duty, which was answer a question. They'd really rather not respond because they're busy. Now, the most important thing I've learned about SMSing, and it's probably the thing that did my head in the most, number one, SMSing is misconstrued constantly. The message that you get, you interpret in 1,000 different ways wrong. Number two, let go of when you receive the message. Everybody gets messages from their mom, their friends, their family, and 99% of people do not answer them immediately because they're busy. You must treat your guy that you're seeing's SMSs as the same as your best friends or the same as somebody else who you care about who's a friend, and you're not going to get your knickers in a twist if they don't respond in 2 hours because you know they're busy. You've got to have the same concept with the dating thing. Don't put so much expectation that the second you send a message, somebody else is free to answer it. They may not be free. Technology may fail. They may not get it. They may have pressed send, but the phone didn't send it back. There may be 1,000 reasons that text message didn't arrive. And phone conversations are way better because you're listening either in contact or on the phone is better. SMSing destroys more relationships than it helps. How do you feel about SMSing, Jeff?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I deal with women all the time who judge their entire relationship on the length of time it takes their partner to return the SMS, and that is absolutely ludicrous. And it makes me laugh because quite often I'll be busy and I'll miss their SMS and won't return it for a day. And I'll say to them, well, haven't you learned anything from that? But I think what you've just said is probably the key to everything. And if you can treat this person like a friend, if this person becomes your best friend first, then you are exponentially increasing the chances of you having a really good quality relationship with them. If you try and start with a big romantic relationship, then becoming a friend, which is what you need to do for a big, long romantic relationship, is that much harder. But if you set the rules so as you becoming close as friends, it doesn't mean you can't have sex even. It just means that you have to be of the mental attitude that this person is a friend and I'll treat them as such. And I won't expect anything more of them than I would expect of my best friend or even from a good friend. So it's about lowering your expectations whilst raising your expectations all at the same time. And in doing that, you allow the person to be themselves. You allow you to get on with your life, and it gives the seeds of love a chance to grow without being stifled and overwatered.
I agree, absolutely, completely. And that's the point for everybody in relationship. You know, even with friends, with everybody, if you just pull back on your expectations of whatever that is, focus your attention on yourself, on what you're here to give, on the qualities that you have, on you being happy, on you being successful. Use your energy that you make for you. And then send love out to everybody. Send nice messages. Do all that. Like, I'll give you an example. A person who I just met only a few days ago, intuitively I knew that they just needed a little bit of extra comfort or support. And so over 2 days, I sent them 2 messages that were sending you beautiful light into your day, sending abundance and happiness. And he wrote back to me and he said to me, "What a beautiful soul you are. I was having a difficult moment twice. Each time you have sent those messages, it was the exact moment I needed them." So what I did was, when I sent those messages, I got an intuitive message to send it. So I thought, what could I send that would be light and happy to just give them an unconditional moment of some support. So I sent them one message in the morning and I sent them another message in the evening. Both times I was intuitively guided to do that, which I did. The messages I got back were so sweet that in my difficult moment, I'd been having a lot of pain that day in a nerve. I was having a difficult moment, and his message helped me. So when I sent a message in the morning, if I had been a typical girl who had just met somebody on the internet, I would have been going, oh my God, I sent it at 8, it's 10 o'clock. He didn't answer me. He doesn't like me. Oh my God, I just sent that message out. Now I'm a fool. Now I feel ridiculous. He'll never message me. Oh my God, will he message me tonight? I didn't send the message to get a response. I sent a message unconditionally to send him something to help him. I had no expectations he would even ever respond. I didn't know, and I didn't care. My job was to send him that nice message because for a moment I connected with his energy and felt that it was a good idea to send, so I sent it, which is what we get. The other thing to understand is that we are telepathic beings. There is a level of telepathy that when you think of a friend, they just instantly ring you. Well, let me tell you something. If you want to get out of a relationship really, really fast, think of the person that you want to date every 5 minutes. Because every 5 minutes they get a telepathic text message from you. And then at the end of the day, they don't even want to know your name because they're over it. So, if you want a successful relationship, you need to get into your power, your day, in your life, and let them turn up when they're available. They'll turn up when they're available. If you've got all of these positive things and you're going to add value, who isn't going to turn up for that? Somebody is going to want to be around you if you're fun to be with. You've got a life purpose. You're focusing on yourself. You're caring. You have zero expectations and no judgment. And you're in a good place in your life. How can you not be a magnet for somebody else in the same position? You're going to attract the same thing.
Yeah, the whole purpose of a relationship for most of us is we want someone who will add value, who will help us grow. Even if it's unconscious, we don't even realize that's what we want. But that, if you break it down, is usually what most people want. So if you're adding value, if you're helping the person that you're with grow, and they're doing the same for you, then you're on the right track. So what do you believe about soulmates?
Look, I have a whole level of understanding about soulmates, and this has been a journey for me. When I first got into, I was always spiritual. I was always intuitive. I remember my father said to me as I stood once at a door, I had a young African-American girl standing at a door with me, and she said to me, I can't walk in your house till I know that your dad believes in God. And I said, because he's home alone, isn't he? And I said, yeah. I said, he's here. He's just about to open the door. And she said, does he believe in God? And I said, he believes in the words of God. And she looked at me and she said to me, that's enough for me. And she walked in. So I was always an intuitive person who listened and always gave. And when it came to going down this journey about what soulmates were, in my younger years, I believed that there was set fate. But now what I believe is that we have probabilities. Because I'm a good science person, I've got a science degree, I certainly believed that there was, when I was young, that there was always set fate and that I always saw the person who I would be with. Well, when my first husband turned up, I always saw myself with someone 6'2", brown hair, blue-eyed. And when my first husband turned up and he was 5'10" and blonde, I kind of went, hang on a minute, you're not my soulmate. And it really put me in a big loop of, well, hang on a minute, what is this whole soulmate thing? I thought we were destined to one person, but we're not destined to one person at all. What happens is that there are a series of life lessons. This is what I believe. You know, there's many beliefs out there, and my belief on all of the concepts of spirituality is an evolution. I don't believe in being set. I believe in an evolution. So my current understanding of soulmates and twin flames, I'll talk about both of those things for those that are quite into those concepts. A soulmate, I believe, is somebody who we have a life lesson with. Now, it can be a friend, it can be a lover, it can be anybody, but it is somebody who is magnetized towards us for the greater purpose of our life learning and lessons. Is there only one soulmate? No. I remember the day my dad said to me, the day you get engaged, there'll be 100 guys turn up beside you, all perfect. But he said you've put so much weight into finding the one that, you just blew off 100 in the process, but the time you find the one, the other 100 will turn up. And it's so true. So I believe what happens is that 5 to 10 probabilities with the same life lesson all occur around you. And in that moment of them all occurring around you, what happens is that free will is in everyone. So say that there's a girl and she's meant to marry the guy, that's probability number 1, she's meant to marry the guy who is, so she's been drawn to somewhere in the world, she's drawn to a certain job, she might be on a mission, there's a guy there who, you know, is meant to be breaking up with his girlfriend, he's the right person for her, the right lesson, it's all weighted, she's been guided to the right thing, and he's dating this blonde with enormous breasts who is just, and look for this, because we said blondes, we'll say redhead. So he's dating this redhead with this enormous breasts, and the guys are all going, woohoo, you've got the chick of the century, man. And his intuition is saying, this isn't working out. And he's now met you and gone, you are amazing. But he can't get out of the fact that the ego is telling him he needs the chick with the red hair and the big boobs because the boys will think he's stupid running off with the other one. So instantly there's a pause that goes around, and all of a sudden everything that you think that you're working towards and he thinks he's working towards, there's a major pause because one of the probabilities didn't pay off. So now we've got to reboot, and there needs to be another probability turn up. Now the problem with this moment when a probability doesn't turn up is that you will go through one of the worst weeks, several weeks, few months, where you feel completely lost, completely confused. You thought everything was coming together, and all of a sudden your life is just sitting there and you're going, what happened? Well, what happened was free will didn't work out. What happened was that probability of what was expected didn't work. Like any scientific experiment, you get all of a sudden you get this feeling going, oh, okay, this isn't going to work out. It's exactly the same with anything that you're going for, jobs, dating, anything. So you've got to wait until the regroup happens. Now you may be sent from that mission to another island where probability number 2 is there. So you'll find that there'll be this real pause where everything is regrouping, and then you've just got to, in that time, go back to powering up, go back to be a magnet, go back to loving yourself, go back to getting yourself congruent, focus on yourself, do what you need to do, and wait for the signs of who's next. There'll always be who's next. If you stay ready and available, you will attract probability number 2. And this one may work out or it might not. Probability number 1, there might have been time for 3 kids. Probability number 2, there might only have been 2. You've got to let go of all of the expectations. You just got to let it go and concentrate on you and allow the next thing to happen. So there are hundreds of soulmates. The twin flame thing is a little bit different, and this is as probably as a spiritual comment as you'll get out of me, but there's a lot of belief in twin flames. This is a conceptual idea of it. I don't really get into it, but I will explain it for the people who are the diehards that really want to know. There is a belief that at the beginning of time that our souls were being developed, that one soul split into 2 and went off into 26,000 years of lives and experience. Now that's a really spiritual thing. They believe that as we are coming back to this intuitive time, people are finding their twin flames. Is that true? I don't think any of us are going to know the answers to those things. You know, it's like asking any really deep spiritual question. Do we know absolutely definitively? No. All we can do is live in the present moment, do the best we can, be a magnet, and let things turn up as they are. There's hundreds of soulmates. Don't believe in set fate.
Okay, so you brought up a couple of things there. Number one was people who are with people who they're not sure about. So what do you say when someone feels like they have a history with this person and they love them? And, you know, I hear this all the time, oh, but he's the father of my children, or, oh, but, you know, I really love him. And they want to hang on to something, but it appears to all intents and purposes for the relationship that it isn't really working. Certainly looking from the outside in, it looks like a disaster. What do you say to someone? Do you say, okay, well, you've still got a life lesson to learn by being with them, or, you know, things might change, or how do they know whether to come or whether to go?
First thing I do is I usually bring them into a downloading session to give them the absolute idea. So I'll give you an example of this. Somebody came to me. Now, I am not told, even though people think that on an intuitive level I'm told about life and death and pregnancy and sex of children and all that stuff, I am not given that kind of intel because it's none of my business. I had one girl turn up here who was very pregnant. I didn't even know. I think she was like 8 months pregnant. I didn't even see it because it wasn't my business. The reason she was there, when she sat down, the first thing, I didn't know her at all. The first thing that I said was, do you understand your partner's having sexuality problems? And she just started instantly crying. She says, he's gay. And I said, no, he's not. So let's just let you understand this. I said, this is your best friend. This is somebody who you have a beautiful relationship with, but he has a real problem that he needs to explore his sexuality because he feels like a woman. So the first identification, he was looking at a lot of gay porn and hiding it from her. And what I said to her was, you've got, out of 10 boxes, you've got 8 ticked here, but you've got 2 you got to learn about. So in their situation, if this guy was gay and he was going to sleep with men the rest of her life, then she had a bigger problem because that congruently may not be okay with her. It may be okay with her. In every situation, you've got to look at what is the problem and am I able to deal with it? Are there workable things in this for us? Because she could get out of this relationship with him and walk into somebody who cheats on her or walk into somebody who's lazy or beats her up or is a pedophile. Everybody's got a problem. They might be non-communicative. They might not enjoy each other's company. This was a couple who had phenomenal potential for an amazing relationship, but she had to get on his team and he had to get on her team. She had to find out, does he need to sneak off and watch porn? Or is he happy to watch it with her? Is she open enough to watch it with her? Or is this something that she's just happy for him to go and explore, realizing that the shelf life of this is just an exploration of visual rather than a need to cheat and explore it physically on a physical level. So for them, it was all about communication. And then towards the end of the session, I asked her if she had any questions. She said, can we talk about the pregnancy? So I didn't even know she was pregnant. It was none of my business. But everything that we had talked about prior to that confirmed that she was meant to stay in the relationship with this guy because there were so many boxes ticked. They just had a little bit of things to twerk, and they had a baby coming. So they already had the nice home that they were working towards, the great relationship. They've been best friends forever. But she had to open up to what he needed, and he had to allow her into that secret society, and they had to work out what did that mean, and that was their only problem. She was more the male in the family, he was more the girl. It worked for them, and they just needed to work out what that is. So in every situation, I line them all up, and I say, before you leave, remember that this is a defining moment of what is good about this and what is bad about this, because if you walk into the dating arena, I can tell you there's a lot more bad in that than there is than trying to sort something out. If somebody is in danger, somebody's getting hurt, somebody is unprepared to learn, there is already only one answer, and that's walk away. And then you need a lot of help to do that. So if you've got 2 people together and one is not teachable or learnable, what is the point of banging your head against the wall? If they're not going to change, go find somebody teachable. As I said, there's a million other people out there. Go find somebody else, because you only want to be moving forward with somebody who is moving forward, or you will get nowhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've seen so many great relationships fall to pieces because of a couple of small things that they weren't willing to communicate on. And I think there's a wonderful saying, which is the grass is greenest on the side that you water most. And
oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I like that.
That's so beautiful. I've never heard that, Jeff. I love that.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, Jodiann, so just wrapping this up here, what final words would you have for people who are on the dating scene and perhaps just looking for that extra word of encouragement, and also for those who perhaps are already in a relationship and looking for the encouragement too?
number one, find out what it is about yourself that makes you beautiful. What gifts did you bring into this world? Because every soul that I look at as I walk around, I see this beautiful gift that they have that maybe they don't see yet. So number one, go look, even if you're in a relationship with somebody or you want to date, take your power back to you and do some self-discovery. We're just starting all these beautiful transformations. Come with us and come and be transformed and press reset, remove the blocks, and just start becoming more aware of what your ego's telling you, what your intuition's telling you. What are you here to do on the planet? Take stock of where you are right now. Am I happy? Am I peaceful? Am I spending time with my children? Am I communicating in a loving way? Am I feeling good as I go to bed? Am I waking up feeling good? Am I inspired? Am I able to help people? Am I looking after living things? Am I living in a community where I'm connecting with everybody on a beautiful way, not just my partner? Am I open to helping children and doing charity? And am I really helping the greater purpose of life? And if I'm contributing in a beautiful way and keeping my power and always having the best intent, have the best intent every moment for every action you have. And if you take responsibility for your intent, for your actions, and for the love that you give out and the energy that you give out, you're going to be a magnet for success in everything. Work, love, friendships, life purpose, everything's going to be beautiful. So, and when something isn't beautiful, don't react. Take a moment. Breathe it in. Surrender. Sometimes you have to surrender to the fact you're wrong. Sometimes you have to surrender to the fact you made a mistake. And surrender to the fact that it's you that needs work. And if you can really surrender into that moment and be totally honest with yourself, whether you need some help to do it or whether you do it by yourself, if you can really get yourself into this state and become a blank canvas, what an opportunity. What an amazing opportunity to really explore this incredible, powerful life in an amazing way and be a magnet for bliss. It's beautiful. So that's what I suggest.
All right. Great to talk to you again, and we will chat again soon. Thanks for your time.
It's been wonderful, Jeff. Thanks so much. And I appreciate everything that you've helped me with relationships in the past because, you know, you've brought me to this place now where I really enjoy my interactions with people and the lesson of discovery of what that is. It's been wonderful. And I really appreciate all your time. So thank you.